Alright, so I was just perusing the interwebs and I stumbled upon this thing. Normally I wouldn't bother, but this thing says that these plot holes are impossible to miss. I felt called out on a personal level when I heard that. And thus here we are. I know I'm a little late to the party on Return of the King's 20th anniversary, but frankly I don't care. Besides, today's my anniversary. I had to do something for that, right? Anyways, let's just dumpster dive right into these takes. Alright, so, first one here asks, why does Nazgul give up his shot at the ring super easily? The Nazgul wants the ring, and he wants it bad. So imagine his delight when in a moment of apparent insanity, Frodo straight up holds it up and offers it to him. After hovering there for a moment on his fell beast, the Nazgul moves in to take it, only to be driven away when his fell beast is hit by a single arrow from Faramir. Seriously, this guy was more concerned about getting scratched than fulfilling his entire purpose of existence by nabbing the ring. First of all, I fail to see how this is Nazgul's fault. The fell beast is an animal at the end of the day, and it reacts to how an animal would after getting shot with an arrow, which is out of Nazgul's control. Secondly, even before this happens, Sam pushes Frodo to the ground and the both of them roll down a flight of stairs. So that one doesn't really hold up. Let's see if the second argument's any better. Mount Doom's security is way too lax. Now, this one gets brought up a lot, and I could see why someone would. But keep in mind, Sauron did not expect anybody to destroy the ring. Or try to, at least. And I assume he's usually looking around with his eye for people trying to sneak up on Mount Doom. Frankly, it's a fair assumption to make considering that both the power that the ring has over people and the amount of manpower you would need simply to walk into Mordor. Besides, one of the points of Sauron's defeat is that he underestimated his enemy. That's the reason he lost all those years ago. It's a mistake he fails to fix, and he suffers hardly for it. Alright, let's see the next one. The Eagles do absolutely nothing until the last minute. The good old why didn't the Fellowship fly the Eagles to Mordor? The first movie establishes that Sauron's forces are in the sky, watching them. Not to mention that Sauron would probably have no problem spotting the Fellowship in the sky anyways. Also, it would probably be 10 times easier for Saruman to spot them like he did when they took the snow route, and he'd probably yell them out of the sky. Alright, moving on. The army of Rohan makes a ridiculous mistake. And this one is so menial that I'm not even going to bother, but I will leave it on the screen. Next up is Saruman is incredibly easy to defeat. Basically, it says here, when the Ents attack, why doesn't Saruman do anything more wizardly? As powerful as Saruman is shown to be, it's very unlikely that he'd be able to stop something as large scale as this attack. Even so, the film cuts likely before he does anything, and he might have. But it probably would have been all for naught anyways. Alright, number 6. Eowyn managed to stay disguised way too long. Basically, it says here that the helmet only covers up so much, and how would she be able to get away with bathing or eating during this time? Well, first of all, the fuck you mean the helmet only covers up so much? Look at this and tell me that if you were looking from a distance while riding on your horse, you'd be able to distinguish this as a woman wearing a helmet rather than assuming it's just a younger man. Besides, the least of a soldier's worries at this point would be the gender of whoever is aiding them in battle. The article does also bring up how she'd have to take off her helmet to eat, though she wouldn't. The helmet has a mouth hole. It'd look weird, it probably wouldn't be very practical, but she'd get away with it. The site also brings up how she'd hide herself sleeping and bathing. I mean, you could just refuse to bathe on the trip to Minas Ithil. And if they have tents to set up, then she's good for sleep. Really, she could just cover her face under a blanket if she really wanted to. Number 7, I'm not really going to cover this one. I'll leave it on the screen for a sec though. It's really nitpicky. It kind of just disregards the possibility of Galadriel using hyperbole to emphasize how people think of the ring. But moving on. Next up, we got, why doesn't Gandalf do more magic? Why doesn't he take out Sauron in the ring? Neither of these suggestions make any sort of sense when you put a modicum of thought into the events in the films. The ring's indestructible, and you gotta destroy the ring to destroy Sauron. No amount of magic is going to break either of them. I suppose Gandalf would have had an easier time getting through Mordor than Frodo and Sam did, but then the argument loses any sort of traction when you remember that Gandalf can't bear the ring and would probably get seduced by it. I mean, this dude is clearly aware of this. He's almost afraid of the ring when he finds it. He goes through extreme measures to make sure he doesn't touch it. Anyways, number 9 is just complaining about Gandalf the White, his reincarnation. I don't have a big problem with how it's done in the movies. The film's pretty clear on what happened. 10, what happened to the orcs? I'm just gonna skip this because it's not really a plot hole. Doesn't really pertain to the movies either. Anyways, this next one listed says that Gollum's plan to take the ring makes no sense, arguing basically that Frodo would get eaten before Gollum could reach him, and Gollum should not be wandering around in Shelob's lair where he could get eaten. Firstly, Gollum has no reason to worry about Shelob since he clearly knows how to navigate the caves and we see him do so expertly. The spider clearly doesn't eat its food on the spot and it probably would have waited a bit before eating Frodo. That would have been Gollum's chance to jump in and snatch the ring. Gollum is aware that he'd get his ass kicked like he did the first time trying to steal the ring from Frodo, so this is likely the easier and safer strategy. Anyways, next up, the elves never really step up. This is in no way a plot hole and it makes sense for the elves. It's totally in character judging by their culture and how they act during the movies. Besides, they're still willing to help to some degree. It's not like they're totally shut off from the rest of Middle-earth. Next, why doesn't Faramir just take the ring to his dad? Because as much as he desires his father's affection, he's aware of what the ring has done to people in the past, and he thinks that it's better for both his dad and all of Middle-earth if the hobbits continue on their quest. Sam told the man to his face that his own brother whom he loved and admired was too weak to withstand the ring, and ultimately died because of it. Faramir could easily imagine what would happen to his sniveling bitch of a dad. And finally, to wrap this all up, why can the ring only be destroyed by Mount Doom?
What are we waiting for?
Mount Doom is especially hot, the only place where the ring's material could be melted. It's a fantasy world. As long as it doesn't break its own rules, it's more than okay to have a ring that's made of an indestructible metal and has to be melted with the hottest place in the world. Also, you do know that melting is a matter of temperature, right? The ring simply melts at a higher temperature than fire, and I don't think that's outrageous. It certainly isn't grounds for calling it a plot hole since the film literally explains it. Anyways, thank you guys for all the support this past year. Cheers to another great year. See you in the next one.
I gotta testify. Come up in the spot looking extra fly. For the day I die, I'ma touch the sky. Gotta testify. Come up in the spot looking extra fly. For the day I die.